Go ahead, Hope. Besides seeing me, what did you do this weekend?
I had a Girl Scout cookie booth and I went sledding with my friend.
Nice. So I had somebody tell me that they helped work at a Girl Scout cookie booth. I don't know if that's the same person, but I have to ask, when you sell Girl Scout cookies, what is the number one flavor that gets sold usually?
The top three are probably like Thin Mints, Caramel Delights, and Lemonades.
Okay.
My mom was just in here, and as soon as Hope asked that question, she was giving me some milk. My mom said Thin Mints.
See, my personal favorite are those Caramel Delights. I can eat a whole box of those in like 30 seconds, but I think any of those are good. The one that I used to always get when I was a kid were the shortbread cookies. And anytime I ask anybody about that, they either cringe or they don't even know what they are. So it's interesting to ask. There's been some changes over time. In fact, I don't even know. I don't, they used to call those Samoas, those Caramel Delights. Do they still call them that or not anymore? No, they changed it. They do? Interesting. Okay. I'll have to look that up. But all right. Well, I'm glad that you had a good weekend, Hope. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the deal. I am feeling like looking like a goofball today. I'm totally okay with that. I might even throw a pair of shades on here in a bit, but I'm only going to do it under one condition. Everybody needs to have their cameras on, and everybody needs to show that they're paying attention and give maximum participation during our lesson today. Okay. If you can do that, I will put my cheese head on after we're done with exercises, and I will wear it for the rest of the lesson, and it'll make my head sweat the whole time, and I don't care. Thumbs up if that's fair. I figured a lot of you would like to see me make a fool of myself. Perfect. Okay. So before we get into exercises, I did want to check out really quickly your quiz from last week. I will go ahead and share my screen for this. We're not going to look into individual people's scores because that's not cool, but there are a couple things that I want you to note about last week. First of all, somebody go ahead and tell me what was the major difference between this last quiz. If you took it, you'll know, between the other quizzes that we've taken in social studies so far this year. Go ahead, Andrew Strand.
It was only one question, and you had to write a whole paragraph.
Right. In other words, we call that an essay exam, right? Now, I'm not sure of how many of these I'm going to do. In fact, the real reason I wanted to do it is because it's almost like a Socratic reflection after our Socratic seminar last week. But if you take a look here, a couple things I want you to note. Number one is that it was due on Friday. You can turn it in at any time and you'll still get full credit. It is a quiz, but you got to get it done. Okay. Next thing, 77 out of 95. Not bad, but we can do a lot better. And until I get this in, it's going to go in as a 0. Now, to get the negative hat off and put the positive hat on, this class did an outstanding job on average. I think of the 15 of you, I think the average score was like 4.3 or 4.4 out of 6. That's between 70 and 80%. That's really good for an essay. I know it doesn't sound like it, but that's really, really, really good for an essay. So I think you all did a great job. If you have any questions on why you got what you did, I hope you can understand this. I couldn't write individual comments on every one because it would take me way too long. But if you have any questions on your score, if you want to come to any of my meetings this week, 1:30 to 2, and ask me, Mr. Pod, why did you grade me the way you did? I would love to answer that question. I'll take a look at it and I'll give you my honest feedback. Okay? Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about that quiz from last week? If you didn't do it, get it done ASAP because it's in as a 0 until you get it done. All right, exercise time. So we are going to do 3 exercises that I have planned for today. 3 exercises. Right now, I'm seeing still 3 people that don't have their cameras on. And if we don't have them on by the end of these exercises, guess what? No cheesehead. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. First one, speed bag. If any of you know anything about boxing, the speed bag is what you hit, trying to hit it as many times as you can in succession. You twirl your hands like this. We are going to do a speed bag 2 different ways, and we're going to do it 10 seconds each way. All right. So I'm going to face my left first, and then I'm going to go to my right. We're going to start in 3 seconds. Get set. 3, 2, 1, go. Go as fast as your hands allow you to. Do not hit yourself in the face. I've already seen it twice today, and it is very embarrassing. And no, Marie, it wasn't me. 3, 2, 1, switch. I could tell that's what you were thinking. I used to have one of these in my basement when I was a kid, and my dad hated it because he'd be trying to take a nap upstairs, and he would hear it smacking off of the wooden board. 3, 2, 1. All right. It's actually a good little workout. Next one we're going to do is standing. All right, this one's going to be half jacks. We're going to do 10 of them, okay? Half jacks, remember, arms down at your side, jumping in and out. You can do a full one if you want. I'm going to alternate it because why not? It's harder that way. 3, 2, 1. All right. I lied to you. I said I had 3 exercises. I only actually have 2. I'm going to allow for a student choice. Unless you don't have one, then I get to pick. Andrew.
Maybe like the swimmer one that we did, like the swimmer.
Yeah, we could do that. We'll do this one seated. If you want to do it on your stomach, you can, but I don't want to have us moving around too much for this. So what we'll do is I'll turn my chair to the side like this, and we'll do swimmers like this. So you're going to rotate your arms and keep bringing them through. You can swivel your chair if you want. All right. We're going to do that for 15 seconds. And if I see people not doing this, I'm not wearing my cheese head. We're going to start in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Try to keep your feet anchored to the ground. That way, when you're swinging your arms, so you're not going to hit stuff. 3, 2, 1. All right. Good shoulder workout. Good thinking, Basney. Okay, I'm going to start getting our notes up. Now, I'm going to tell you right out of the gate, this was something that I had already planned, but we are probably not going to get to that last note slide. And I've already got it planned for next Wednesday or this following Wednesday when we come back. So if we don't get to it, don't go, oh my God, it's the part we didn't get to one. Oh my goodness. Not a big deal. Okay. We already planned ahead. I just want to give us some extra note taking time if we have it, but we won't need it. All right. This is a picture of Caesar getting killed. When Miss Doyle goes through it with you in the play Julius Caesar, when you read it in language arts, this is the famous picture, obviously painted hundreds of years afterwards, but it shows Caesar being held down by some of the senators and then other senators running up and putting the coup de grace or the death blow on Caesar. Does anybody remember what immediately happened after Caesar died? It's funny. It's the same thing that happened right before Caesar came to power. United States had one of these. People in the same area fighting one another. What's that called?
Civil War.
Go ahead, Abe.
It's called a Civil War.
Right. So they're going to disintegrate back into another civil war again. And weirdly enough, sometimes I swear that Romans weren't that great at history because they make the exact same mistake that they did the time before. And yes, I know that this is not a note slide. Okay. We'll get to it. So we're going to have another triumvirate come up again. And the word that we used for this was a triple friendship or a triple alliance. So here are the 3 characters. And we talked about these last Thursday, so this should be a review. Octavian, who is Caesar's grandnephew. Mark Antony, who is Caesar's like number 2 guy right below him. They weren't related, but they worked very closely together and very well together. And then a guy named Marcus Lepidus, who was a very wealthy man connected to the senators. Unfortunately, he's going to be the first one to go. What really ends up happening is we go into a civil war between these 2 guys, Octavian and Mark Antony. Now, Mark Antony, he got the help of another kingdom down in the southern Mediterranean Sea. It was where Cleopatra lived. Where did Mark Antony go to try to get some help? It looked like he was going to win by doing this, by the way. It's one of the oldest kingdoms that we know on the Nile River. Is that Alejandra?
Egypt.
Yeah. They seek the support of Egypt. Really good strategy. He thinks, well, we have the support of Egypt. We'll be able to hang out in the east, and eventually we'll be able to come back, march on Rome, and then we'll end up taking back control. It goes terribly. And we're not going to get into the details because we don't need to. But what I can tell you is that through some very shrewd moves by this guy, Octavian, he ends up defeating Mark Antony and Cleopatra to the point where they would have been executed publicly for crimes against Octavian. So they end up taking their own lives instead. Octavian ends up becoming the victor of this civil war, and he is not only going to take control, he is going to change both his name and his title. The first emperor of Rome is Octavian. Now, most people, when they refer to Octavian in history, they refer to him by a different name. And it's a name that is given to him by the Senate, and it's the name that we have for our 8th month of our calendar year. He goes by the name Augustus, which means the exalted one. Now, if anybody has ever heard of this word before, exalted, do you know what it means to be exalted? You hear about this in religion a lot, and I've even heard of it in The Legend of Zelda. There's a character in there, they call her the Exalted Nabooru, if any of you have ever played The Legend of Zelda before. Marie.
Like powerful?
Right, and I think that's the meaning of it, but I don't think that's necessarily the context they use it in here. I think that this person is seen as powerful because exalted in this case means someone that's honored. I would almost think of it like you almost would be bowing to the person as they walk through. You're supposed to give them your utmost respect and honor when you see them in public, right? If you're going to be spamming the chat, I'm going to turn it off, okay? Now, he's also going to be known as the first citizen, known as princeps. The idea is this. Augustus is in complete control. He has everything that Julius Caesar wanted as a dictator for life, but it is going to become an official title. There is going to be no more dictators. There will be consuls, but they answer to the emperor. There's a senate, but they can't do anything without the emperor okaying what they do. In other words, the emperor is the guy. He is the 100% honored human being inside of Rome. Now, there's a problem. If he starts off badly and things go bad, what's going to happen to this new system? He's given 100% complete control. If things go badly, what's going to happen probably? Let's say that he becomes selfish and just does whatever he wants, or he ignores people that have advice for him.
Hey, Mr. Plod, do you know, there's a little thing here that says blank first citizen.
Yeah, it's princeps. So if you want to write that down, it's this.
He will. They will revolt the senators, and the senators will probably kill them.
It's very possible, right? The senators could do the same thing that they do to Julius Caesar, or they could do away with the system upon his death and restore the Senate to power again, right? The very first person, whenever you come into these new systems, is incredibly important because if they do well, the system will continue. If they do poorly, they're going to replace it. The United States had a government right after the Revolutionary War, and it went terribly. They replaced the whole thing. Then after they came up with our Constitution, they had George Washington, whose birthday is today, by the way. He became our first president, stepped down after 2 terms, and we've had presidents in the United States ever since because he did a good job. Augustus is going to do a great job. We're not going to call him Octavian anymore. He's just going to be Augustus now. Let's see what he does. Ah! Oh, no. Now, what this time period is going to be called, and we'll refer to it both today and really Wednesday, is Pax Romana. Now, I don't know about all of you, but when you hear that word Pax, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Be honest. When you hear Pax, I don't think of something good. I think of something bad, something that people said I needed to get when I was a kid to try to keep me healthy when I was older. Prevalent.
I think of chicken pox.
That's what I think of too. And that's why I dislike talking about this word, because I immediately associate it with something bad, like the Vikings winning a Super Bowl. But that's not the case. Pox in Latin actually means something completely different. And if anybody knows Spanish, it actually is closely related to the word paz, P-A-Z. And what does that mean?
Peace.
Peace. Very good, right? So the idea of Pax Romana, it means literally Roman peace. And we're going to see that for 200 years, starting with Augustus Caesar. Now, it doesn't mean that Rome won't go to war with other places. I mean, it's Rome, right? They're like Sparta. They're always constantly in conflict with somebody else at some point in time. The difference is that before, in these last 100 years, who does Rome keep fighting? Think about Julius Caesar, Augustus Caesar, Mark Antony. Who has Rome been fighting over these last 100 years, really? Lyle.
Itself.
Right, itself. And now they're going to be focusing on things outside of their empire as opposed to fighting amongst themselves. That's what Roman peace means. It doesn't mean that they're not at conflict for the next 200 years. For Rome, that would be impossible. Okay? So under Augustus's leadership, we're going to see a golden age come in. Very similar to the idea of what was brought in by Pericles in ancient Athens. The idea that they are going to do whatever they can to continue to make Rome look like a better and better place. And how are they going to do that? Well, they're going to have to start by raising some money. So one of the first things that Augustus does is he starts sending out loans to people who want to start new businesses. Because if there's one thing that's going to allow Romans to be able to spend more money, it's by making more of it. So he realizes if he gives loans to people to start new businesses, that'll boost trade, have more money circulating around, and make more money for the average person. Now, on the topic of money, Augustus comes up with a new gold coinage system. Pretty cool. Now, every single place under the Roman Empire is going to use this money. There was a huge problem in the United States when they first got started when it came to their money. Does anybody know what it was? The United States had a huge problem. We fixed it now. And don't say metal money because, I mean, we still have metal money. Lyle.
Whose head got printed on it?
Yeah, no, actually, that was a pretty small issue. The main problem is that each state actually had its ability to make its own money. So when they were trying to trade things, it was very difficult to find out how much that this money was actually worth. Augustus says, look, we're all going to use gold, and all the coins are going to be this exact same weight of gold. So when you're anywhere in the Roman Empire, that's what's going to establish what we pay for things. It's going to make it super easy, and we're never going to have any confusion. And what else does he put on it? Take a look at the picture.
His face.
Of course he puts his face on it. He wants everybody to remember, hey, I'm the one that came up with this great system. Do not forget that I came up with this. I am the one who brought peace to Rome, and I'm the one who brought money all over the empire to make things easy. Right. Augustus is always going to do the same thing. He's really good at creating these new systems, but then after that, he always makes sure that everybody remembers he's the one that put it into place. Another thing, roads. Whoa. Roads. At the time, one of the most important things that you can do, because it's very difficult to travel from city to city. There were no roadways at this time. So to have roads meant that it would be easier to travel, easier to trade, and in the end, easier for people to make more and more money in the Roman Empire. Roads, super important advancement, and the Romans made the best ones. They found a way to make 5 or 6 layered roads that would be usable for over hundreds of years before they had to be replaced. And then the last thing, which is going to help continue to keep Rome safe. They are going to come up with an official police and fire department. The fire department is huge because in the beginning, they end up making this better by bringing marble in and reconstructing new buildings. But in the beginning, Rome is mostly made out of what substance? The buildings in Rome, what do you think they were made out of? Go ahead, Abe.
Wood.
Wood. Wood burns. No kidding, Mr. Plod. Yeah, but when it starts to go up, there's no official fire department. It's not like they have the fire hoses and materials that we have today, right? So you would have to put out a fire yourself. And if it started spreading, which it did very easily, the whole city could go up into flames. Now, in the beginning, this does a really, really good job. 50 years from now, there's going to be somebody else in control who doesn't care nearly as much about this, and almost the entire city of Rome is going to burn to cinders. But we'll talk about him on Thursday. His name is Nero. He was absolutely insane. Now, probably the most important thing is that with Augustus coming up with all these new changes, people began to respect him to the point where he actually got himself declared a living god while he was alive. This hasn't happened since this has never happened in Roman history, actually. In fact, the only place that we've ever seen this happen really is in Egypt. So they're taking this idea, but it's going to allow these emperors to pick the people who replace them and give them that status of, hey, I can do whatever I want because I'm linked to the gods. Whoops. So Augustus, after 40 years, is going to pass away, and he picks his heir. Now, Augustus did an excellent job at being unselfish and providing Rome with the services that it needed. There's one problem. When you only have one person in charge, things can change on a dime. If you have somebody who wants to try to improve things and spend money to do so, things are going to get better. If you have somebody who doesn't want to spend money, guess what? They ain't going to do it. And that's the example of this guy right here. So this is Tiberius, the guy who took over in place of Augustus when he passed away. He was his great grandnephew, if you can believe that, and then was adopted as his son and then took over on his death. Exactly what Augustus did for Julius Caesar almost. Very bizarre. Now, he's going to do a lot of things, but one of the first things that he does is do away with the assembly, which is it's a part in the Republic where they would have the plebeians serve. And then he started collecting a whole bunch of tax dollars and didn't spend it. He moved away to an island and then sat there just collecting money like a little miser, like an Ebenezer Scrooge for like 20 years. He passes away, and then all heck breaks loose. We have an insane guy who tries to spend all that money that Tiberius made and is just an awful human being. We'll talk about him on Thursday. But eventually, things will come back to normal again. And they're going to do it through this guy named Claudius. And Claudius is going to go back to Britain, where Julius Caesar ended up trying but failing to create a colony. So once Rome starts coming together again and expanding, we start to see that things patch up and go better for a while. After him, we're going to see a guy named Vespasian, who is going to create the Colosseum that we know today as the famous one. And it's going to house over 250,000 people in it for its events. Now, after Vespasian passes away, we've got someone named Trajan, who ends up being the leader of Rome when it's at its absolute height at 117 AD, which is 100 years after Augustus has passed away. And we have Hadrian, who's going to go back to Britain, and he is going to decide that he is sick of having to deal with people coming in from the north. This is where they're having all of their issues. In the south here, things are going pretty well. Trade is booming. They're able to have ships come up to port, make a lot of money, but they keep having raiders come in from the north. So Hadrian figures, hey, here's what we're going to do. We've got so many people up here and so much money in the Roman Empire. We are going to build a literal 80-mile wall that goes from west to east to keep out anybody from coming through. And this is a weird idea because this is going to be the first time that the Romans willingly don't expand anymore. But it works out very well because it keeps the people out and allows the trade to continue to flourish down in the south. and Britain becomes a very loyal and very what's called prosperous or wealthy colony of the Roman Empire. And yes, I can understand that my enthusiasm right now with my cheese head makes me look goofy. I don't care. All right. Now, the last person that we're going to see here in this pox. What does pox mean again? It doesn't mean chicken pox.
Peace.
Peace. Thank you very much, Brandon. Yes, the last person that we are going to see under control here in the Pax Romana is named Marcus Aurelius. This guy. Now, he's actually, I don't think, completely at fault for what happens, but he does do one thing that is horrible, and he only wants to groom his son to take over for him. His name is Commodus. Commodus, we'll talk about him on Thursday, decided that rather than be a leader and lead the empire, he would rather be a gladiator and fight in the Colosseum. So he puts on a helmet, actually a lion helmet, and spends his time fighting for people to cheer him on while he's inside the Colosseum. Now, that would be like right now if President Biden said, you know what, Patrick Mahomes, why don't you go ahead and take a seat? I'm going to go play quarterback for the Chiefs for a while, and let's go ahead and win some Super Bowls, right? Not exactly what you'd expect a president to do. Plus, I know he's really old, but just bear with me on this. You understand what I'm saying, right? That's not the arena that they're supposed to be in. So people start to say, look, we've got this guy who would rather sit and fight lions and gladiators in an arena rather than take care of the empire. We've got a problem here. And we start to see this pox disintegrate. Commodus is going to be killed, and we're going to start to see civil wars sprout up again between the years 200 and 300, and it's going to end this Roman pox, or this Roman peace. Whew. That was a lot. Take a sip of coffee here. We've got 3 minutes left, ladies and gentlemen. I would love to go through some exit ticket questions with you, but the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off my recording.